Hello, I'm Jared Fry, General Manager of Medina TV, and I want to welcome you to our 2019 Candidates Forum. And of course, joining me as always is Jacqueline Rinksmeyer with the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce.
Yes, thank you, Jared. We are once again pleased to partner with Medina TV to offer our viewers an opportunity to become more informed voters for the upcoming November election.
And of course, Medina TV or the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce do not support or endorse any of these candidates. This is just brought to you as an informational way to learn more about the candidates running for office.
All candidates in contested races were invited via certified letter to participate in the interviews today.
So sit back and get informed with our 2019 Candidates Forum. Hello, we're glad to have in studio with us now Keith Rasey, one of the candidates for the 2 open seats for Medina City School Board of Education. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate this opportunity to speak with you.
Sure. And why don't we start off first and let the residents know a little bit more about yourself.
Well, I'm old enough now to collect Social Security, so I do. And I've been married for a long time to Diane, my wife, and I have 4 children and 4.5 grandchildren because there's one still on the way. I have degrees from Eastern Michigan, from Yale, and from Kent, and I have a certificate in organizational leadership and development from Southern Methodist University. It's one of those deals where you go for a week every so often and then they certify that you know something about it. For 25 years, I was a United Methodist minister. I'm a long-time advocate in the hospice movement, being part of it in the United States almost since its beginning in 1977. And I still work part-time as a hospice chaplain, which I enjoy. I like to think of myself as a citizen of the world because of the excellent public schools I was privileged to attend. I like to think of myself as a scholar, and I like to think of myself as someone who knows how to get things done as well.
So what was your drive or motivation to run for the school board seat?
The school board is a very healthy organization now. When they decide to make a decision, they try to gather information from all segments of the community, especially when they're trying to pass a levy. And that kind of healthy functioning needs to be encouraged in our community. The school board hasn't always been like that. We recently had an occasion where the school board forgot that the money always belongs to the taxpayer and that the taxpayer must understand what is being done with it. So they learned that the taxpayer must be consulted on anything which involves a large outlay of money. And so I like that. I like how they operate. I think that the school does a good job. I think, though, that I would bring something to it that is not there at the present time. That is that we need to raise our sights from just comparing ourselves to schools in Ohio, especially for a certain segment of our student populations, not for everybody, but for a certain segment, we need to compare ourselves to the exclusive finishing schools. And the reason that is that we need more participation from places like Medina and the political class on the national stage. One of the reasons that Horace Bushnell, who was a prime mover of the public school movement in the United States, advocated for it was he said it was a way for all the classes to get to know each other and to understand each other. And we've become kind of sterile. We seem to have homogeneous leadership on the national stage. And we need to have more people from Medina, which is one of the wealthiest counties in the state of Ohio. We need to compare ourselves some with students that are capable of doing it with the elite schools. That doesn't mean, however, that I am not for educating everybody to the best of their capabilities.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of pushing that drive and looking to do that, how do you work the balance between, as you mentioned in your answer a little earlier, the constituents versus the wishes and I guess the motivation of the board, if at times they may not agree?
There are all kinds of ways to reach agreement and to deal with conflict. One of the things that we need to teach every student, and the board as well, is how to get along. So one of my slogans is everyone counts. When it goes to spending the school's money or when it goes to planning what we can do to help people reach their goals, everyone counts. Then the other slogan I have is reading, writing, arithmetic, and relationships. We live in a time where people don't know how to get along. And we need to actually have that socio-emotional learning in our schools. And I'm pleased to say that I just found out that the state did come up just this year with some recommended standards on socio-emotional learning. They're not required, but they're the sort of thing that would help us. When Stan Orvshinsky, a famous inventor from Akron who died in 2016, had his genius ways of seeing things, he didn't just do it all by himself. He had a whole team that helped him. Creating a school system which is a learning organization in which everyone counts and everyone's input helps to arrive at decisions is healthier. If you read the Harvard Business Review constantly, you'll see at least once every year, heterogeneous groups make more effective and more lasting decisions than homogeneous groups. So everyone counts, reading, writing, arithmetic, and relationships.
Now, I guess one of the biggest tests to that answer you just gave would be when the district faces redistricting, which, if elected, will be one of the issues that you would take on as a school board member. A tough issue. How would you handle, or what are your thoughts on redistricting in the school district?
I haven't really studied it that much, and I'm not quite certain where they're going to go with that. As long as it meets what I consider to be a healthy, open, transparent process, I think that a decision could be arrived at that would be supported by the vast majority. Whenever you do something like that, if you do it right, by the time comes to make the decision, it's almost a foregone conclusion. It's not controversial anymore. So there needs to be lots of talking about it, and lots of meetings about it, and lots of back and forth about it, and careful listening. Careful listening.
Yeah, definitely. And then in terms of some other issues I might look at would be, of course, with funding. School funding varies, whether it's because of the state or different things that happen, mandates that might get handed down. What would you see as problems or things you'd like to take on in regards to school funding if elected?
This position is one of those in which you have to start somewhere. You know, I don't control the strings in the state or at the federal level, and I don't control the structure of how we fund the public schools. But I will say this, that I am not a fan of charter schools. I am a fan of the public school, and I think that my granddaughter has experience with 2 charter schools. One was just training people to be widgets and work in the factory. And the other one, although it had an IQ test that you had to pass to get in, every year the teachers changed. The marketers and the administrators didn't change, but every year the teachers changed because they didn't pay them enough. So the public school for me needs to be solidified, and it needs to be more profoundly and deeply funded. And part of that is trying to explain the vision that was inherent in what Horace Bushnell thought about what the public school could do, not just for the students, but for the whole world.
Yeah. Now, in terms of with the funding the way it is set up, eventually schools are always stuck in that vicious cycle of having to go back to the voters for funds, whether those are bond issues or levies. Again, something if elected you might have to be faced with some type of bond issue for the facilities around the district. Your thoughts about going to taxpayers for items like that?
Well, remember now, I was a minister for 25 years, so asking people for money is almost some sort of professional skill I have. And whenever I would ask people for money, I have to be a believer for myself, whether it's funding the church budget or people who need help. Okay, there are people in the congregation who need help, and knowing who are the people in the church that have the money that might be able to help somebody with repairing their car or a health insurance issue is very important. So I'm very comfortable in talking about money and asking people for money. Once in Mentor, we raised $1 million in the end of the 80s. And that's not a lot of money in the school system. But $1 million is still $1 million. And I'm used to studying budgets because I'm a licensed nursing home administrator. And my degree in economics and understanding of significant digits means I'm comfortable talking in millions and billions of dollars.
Now, in terms of, we brought up all these topics of issues that you could face upon election. Another one is working with other members of the board on different issues that will come up during your term. What do you feel about the working relationship? Do you feel like it has to always be a consensus where everyone is united and has the same? Can people defer on the board with the 5 members? Kind of what's your approach that you would take with working with the board and those other 4 members?
I would want to have an amicable relationship, even if there's disagreement. I still want to be friends. There's no need to have a scorched earth policy. I'm not an ideologue. A good idea is a good idea, no matter where it comes from. So I like to be friends with people. I don't like to be so in conflict with them that we can't enjoy each other's company. Because if we're going to have to work closely together, we're not only going to have to learn how to tolerate each other, we probably need to learn a little bit of affection and concern and empathy for each other.
And part of that working together, as you just mentioned, is looking at the strategic plan. There was one that was already in place, and there's talk of working on a new one. What things would you like to see in that strategic plan?
Well, again, I think we talked about trying to change how we measure our success. We have a wide variety of students. I know I've substitute taught in every school district in Medina, right? And every student should be encouraged to aim the arrow of their longing beyond the horizons of their highest hopes. That's a quote from Friedrich Nietzsche. And he, one of the charter schools my granddaughter went to, mediocrity was what they were pushing, And for some of our students, in fact, for all of our students, whether it be academics or sports or gymnastics or fixing things with duct tape, which I'm really good at, aim as high as they can. Nietzsche predicted, and we see some of that in the mediocrity, which is so prevalent in understanding what the schools are supposed to be about. He predicted that there will come a time when human beings will have forgotten how to aim the arrow of their longing beyond their highest aspiration. There will come a time when they had forgotten the sound of the whirring of the bow. Students need to love learning. And I have been in some classrooms where the love of learning is hard to be caught there because there's concern about teaching to the test. It's not really true, but there's a statement which is attributed to Socrates that he said, Plato took my mind and gave it wings. I wish that were true, that he said that, but he didn't. But we need people that love learning, and we need to teach them how to love learning. Since I graduated from college, the whole computer thing came. So I had to learn how to learn. How do I learn? And it's at my age, it's sort of laughable, but at one job I had for a large company, I was the local computer fix-it guy. Right? And you wouldn't normally think of people my age that way. But continuing to be a lifelong learning and loving learning. That has to be instilled in all of our students, no matter what their field is. They have to get to love what Nietzsche called the sound of the whirring of the bow that propels us to things that we didn't think we could do.
And definitely for anyone to run for the school board seat takes a lot of passion and drive to want to do that for education. As you look at the Medina City School District now, kind of a twofold question, what do you kind of see that you're most proud of, and what do you see as something you would like to try to improve on?
Well, I'm very proud about how the community, by and large, supports the schools. I'm very pleased with that. The school has implications for the community that go beyond any narrow understanding of educational mission. The school is part of what makes a community of people. I think that for the most part, the school has the support of the people. I think where we need to go is we need to become more diverse. The Superintendent Sable last year before last said to the class, you're going to be able to get out of Medina bubble and explore the world. Well, Medina is a safe place, and I think we need to encourage more of exploring of the world, not just the world that's out there, but the interior world of relationships, so that we can create more people like Edison. He didn't invent everything by himself. He had a bunch of help, and the idea of the lone individual who does everything is anathema and has, in some ways, crippled our culture. It's not being outstanding in the field by yourself. It's being outstanding with a bunch of other people in the field, so that what you produce is even more wonderful and more effective.
Yeah. Well, definitely thank you for your insight there on these questions. I want to make sure I give you a moment here in case I didn't hit anything or something you'd like to hit on. This is your opportunity, a chance to say something right to the voters.
Well, I'm a scholar. I publish books and articles. I'm really good at school, and I've always loved the public school, and it has helped my life immeasurably. My mother was an unwed teenage mother, and because of the public school and her love of me, I have had a rich life. It doesn't mean I am financially rich, but I've had a rich life. And I want to be sure that I can give back to the public school so that others who may not have had the world's best start can also have a rich life. I hope that you'll give me this opportunity.
Thank you. That's Keith Rasey, one of the candidates for the Medina City School Board of Education. Thank you for your time here today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We wish you the best of luck this November.
Well, that's very kind of you.